Hey, what's up YouTube? Killing Company, back at it again. Today, just got another vinyl update for you. In the background, we are listening to Wytch Hazel. This is Sojourn and 2018. They have a really good album from 2020 that got a solid amount of attention and press, which you should definitely check out as well. But this was my first exposure to the band, and yeah, check them out. Okay, so we'll just keep rolling with another vinyl update, and I got some projects in the works for you, but that'll be down the road for a little bit. I'm still waiting for some key items to arrive. Until then, we'll just kind of keep this collection thing going. So I kind of feel weird calling them collection updates because it's not like I've been on YouTube long enough to do an exhaustive sort of collection rundown with anyone, but who cares, right? Okay, so first up, Ars Magna Umbrae, Polish black metal band. They're labeled on Metallum as atmospheric black metal, but I think that's kind of a, I don't know, misleading description. So this is an Void Hanger release entitled Apotheosis, and I was kind of looking for an album that sort of met the kind of intensity that last year's Drastis release, Le Creux de Song, came out, and there's just an intense sort of like, I guess you could say, the sound that you hear traditionally coming out of like Iceland and sometimes France, where there's like this complex, layered approach to the kind of environment that they're creating. And even this is an Void Hanger release, so they usually do some pretty interesting stuff, but this was a very much guitar-driven black metal record, and while I do think you could probably call it atmospheric, it's way too intense. So it fulfills that kind of like, you know, Carpe Noctem is a band that sort of another an Icelandic act that comes to mind when I think about someone who may be interested in a band like that, or that kind of Icelandic scene. This may speak to them. They're just sort of layered, you know, I don't know how many different guitar tracks are going on at one time. There's a bunch of them. But you get kind of this sort of fluid or liquid surface, and then the nuances sort of are visible, or that offer some kind of texture underneath. So though you get sort of sparse guitar elements that exist on a much on a disguised sort of level below all of these sort of waves of riffs that are stacked or scaffolded on top of one another. The rest of the album is like worth your time in the sense that, like, it's not like a very, you know, whatever your drumming and bass work and the vocals and all that is equally interesting, but it's just very much a guitar-driven black metal record, and this is probably as technical as my black metal tastes tend to go. I mean, like, it's not, I don't know, it's more intense than the Oranzi Pazuzu album was, but also offers, you know, some kind of technicalities to it as well. So ours Magna Umbrae, Apotheosis. Next up is a band out of Finland. This is Convocation with Ash's Coalesce, and this is their second full length. So I think it was originally released on Everlasting Spew Records, and just a two-piece. Now they play, I would say, death doom, but it's got like some funeral leaning. So you have like your Hooded Menace, Disembowelment, Esoteric. Like if I had to sort of line up three influences there. So it's not quite a true funeral doom record, and it's not as straightforward or as stripped down as like a pure death doom record. Really cool album art right there. So I picked this up on Sentient Ruin, and one of the things you can hear on this album is they're very young. I want to say the musicians are in their early 20s, and while their first LP was great, they were taking a little bit more risk, and that included some clean vocals. And I sort of applaud them for making those sort of changes and sort of stepping out and not wanting to become complacent in just another death doom band from Finland. So they're trying to create more nuance to their sound. You can hear the youth in the voice though, in their voices. They even bring in some sort of guests to help out in that department. And depending on your taste in the genre, it may or may not work for you. I don't know if it was necessarily bad. It's just in terms of my doom sort of sensibilities. It felt like, I don't know, they're just not at a place vocally where it matches the kind of range or tone that I want from like a death doom vocals when they're sung. But at the same time, I don't want to come, like say that it's necessarily poor as much as it is just a sign that like they're incredibly ambitious at where they are at this point in their career. And as a project, there's a bunch of different bands within Finland that the members are involved in. It was. That being said, I know that may sound like a criticism, but it was one of my favorite sort of death doom records for the year. I still give like Gloomlord all the praise in the world, and there's a few others that I would be on like a short list. But if you like death doom with a bit more of a funeral doom leaning, this is a cool one to check out for sure. That's Convocation, Ash's Coalesce. Okay, here we go, some more venturing into something sort of adjacent for the channel, but not quite. This is Himukalt on Malignant Records, and this is called, the album's entitled Septic. And it's a power electronics project. I'm gonna get this name right here. Esther Karkanens, I believe is how you pronounce that, but this was Himukalt's been around for a while, and it is sort of like a formal exploration of tension dynamics within a power electronic context. What does I mean by that? Okay, that sounds like kind of a pretentious thing to say, but so you get these sort of like looped samples and pulsating, incredibly abrasive power electronic surges, right? But underneath that, there is also this element of like filth and smut and like, you know, people in, you know, in the midst of having sex, you know, spoken voices, you know, orgasms. I don't know if they're like sampled from different like pornographic films or what it is, but it sort of is pairs with the music to provide an incredible amount of sort of tension to the listening experience. And there's a great interview with her online talking about it's not meant to be a like specific exploration of eroticism or lust. It is just meant to get the listener emotionally involved, right? So it sort of piques your interest as like, is this, you know, it's supposed to be a sexual experience, and then you get these, as that sort of draws you in, you get these incredibly abrasive moments where tension is thrown back and the pacing of the song sort of is you know, interrupted. So you pull yourself back emotionally, and then of course is it that repetition and that all the samples and the loops that are familiar that have been established sort of as background pull you back in and you know, bring you emotionally back into the song. It's this back and forth that is sort of the intent, you know, to draw someone into a sound that is, you know, otherwise challenging, and then sort of how long can you sustain that sort of give and take. So it's not meant to be like necessarily an exploration of sexuality. However, it is sort of a statement. You know, most of these, like the intersection between sexuality and violence here are, you know, you have these images of you know, I don't know, female characters that are at the same time erotic, at the same time placed within a, you know, fractured and challenging sort of landscape and depiction. So take that for what you will. I think it's, you know, on par for people who are familiar with like power electronics or industrial in terms of that like synergy between abrasive noise and sexuality, but this is definitely a power electronics record on a label in Malignant that I really like to sort of key off of, because I think they're doing a good job in terms of bringing in the metal community, having a connection with Rotted Life Records. So anyway, that is Himukalt and Septic. For people who are into, I guess you just, as I described this, you know, most people who are familiar with, get this right, lingua ignota, right? I believe that's how you say it. She, I think, was on Profound Lore Records. That's a very different, like, specifically addressing sexual violence. This project's really just more of a formal exploration of sound. I don't think it's meant to be specifically or trying to articulate, you know, artistic sort of statement surrounding something like sexual violence in the same way that lingua ignota is, but just something to keep track of when you're paying attention to this. I don't know, you know, how much of the interest in this project is gathered the fact that you have albums like that are so explicitly tied to sexuality, but nonetheless, with just in terms of a power electronics record, one that I liked a lot this year. Okay, next up, Molten Chains. So this is Torment Enshrined, and this was an independent release, which is kind of surprising because I would think at this point in time, I know that this is maybe their first full length. There was an EP that got a good amount of exposure and circulation. I could be wrong on that. It could be a full length. Off the top of my head, I don't quite remember, but I guess the simplest way to describe this would be blackened speed metal. Like, it's the roots of this band are very much established in traditional metal, new wave of British heavy metal, and speed metal. So something like Satan from the UK or Agent Steel. That's sort of the most important point of reference when you're talking about this band. It just sounds like on top of that, someone coated the record with a certain kind of black metal sensibility, in the sense that there's like a darker gothic theme going on here, and there are occasional harsh vocals and flashes of extremity, but it's still very much a speed metal or a traditional metal record. It just is sort of painted with some darker elements that, in the context today of the new traditional heavy metal bands that are coming out, they're doing something a little bit different. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'd like to say about this other than if you're looking for a speed metal record, this will work for you. I think probably black metal fans, it's going to be a little bit, I don't want to say soft. It won't be quite it won't be quite extreme enough for you. But if you do like more traditional heavy metal, and you do want sort of a glimpse in terms of what is happening right now with the trad scene, this is a great record. It's sort of, I've mentioned this a few times in the channel, bands that have grown up now in their 20s and 30s. I think most of them listening to death metal and black metal is sort of like a normative experience, or you're gaining entrance to those subgenres at a much earlier age than the preceding generation. So when they decide that I'd rather play like some more traditional heavy metal, they've got like all this time and experience listening to extreme metal bands. It's not surprising to hear that they're a band like this, is clearly influenced by black metal, but definitely has more interest within exploring traditional elements of metal. So Molten Chains, I think the CD version of this got picked up for distribution, but I think the vinyl is still independent. So once again, if like it's up on Bandcamp and you want to support independent artists, Molten Chains. Okay, last one. This is Omegavortex, and I always get the order of the title messed up here, so hold on. It's Black Abomination Spawn. I always want to say like Black Spawn Abomination for some reason. Anyway, look at the baby. It's so they are out of Germany, and a little bit of background for this one. There was a very short-lived project called Beyond that I believe released a full length in 2013. I want to say like something. I forget the name of the title, but it's a German death metal band. But they played a kind of death metal that was like growing in popularity at the time. That was not like doing the old school revival. It was like that hyper atmospheric and abrasive death metal. So of like mitochondrion and I guess there's been several variations of the Evangelist project that I believe now currently resides in Finland, but was in Portland. I think started in Florida. And, anyway, profound lore. I think, and to some degree, Dark Descent sort of to introduce bands that were playing this like incredibly abrasive and intense, atmospheric death metal, right? Like they had taken something that had previously, you know, maybe like Dead Congregation started, and were just like taking it in these incredibly dense, you know, trying to find riff structure, you know, was almost very difficult. Just to how much chaos was going on, and you know, bands like Portal, they're big now, sort of emerged out of that kind of world. Anyway, Beyond sounds like that, right? Omegavortex emerges from those band members. So if that project, you know, fell apart, this one started up, and this has definitely got elements of that chaos, right? So it's not quite like the bestial sort of like black metal or death metal combination. It's clearly a death metal record, but it's got a little bit, you know, less clarity, or it is less groove. There's a whole lot more chaos going on here. But where I kind of had written it off and thought like, okay, I know what this is going to sound like. Where it pulled me back in were these moments of, I guess you would call it like blackened thrash, but a better way to state it would be like that moment from 1986 to 1988, 85 to 88 or so, before death metal becomes incredibly well-defined, and before, you know, the second wave of black metal becomes defined. So you have sort of this odd place in extreme metal history that is sort of being fleshed out without a lot of well sort of isolated or compartmentalized categories. And you know, you think about like early Sodom, Sarcophago, they were sort of walking all these, even like Dark Angel for me, it's like thrash was terrifying at that point in time. It was just become so intense. I think those like early Teutonic thrash records are almost like, you know, you could say black metal records. In the same way you could talk about the blackened thrash coming out of Brazil. They're so dark and scary and sinister. They've got their own level of atmosphere that works, you know, in terms of being connective tissue to an album like this. So when this band slows down and all the chaos sort of comes to a, like, I don't want to call it levity, but it just gives them room to breathe because they sort of lock horns and get a nice solid groove or riff that's familiar. It gives you like something to, you know, it conjures up that feeling, that emotion that in the 80s time period, you know, when I listen back to those records, that's what I feel, and that's what I think this album is sort of referencing, or pointing to, are those periods in like the mid to late 80s when things are a little bit complicated. Now, you know, we kind of understand them as sort of like this point of, you know, a launching point for all the genres that would come after. Because this is so chaotic, all those well-defined things are sort of dissolved, and you get this intense, crazy, modern death metal, modern atmospheric death metal that's just super extreme and like a weird combination of black and death, and then it pulls back to something now that is refreshing to hear within this context because we're so well versed as an extreme metal community. So awesome record. on Invictus, which is another label that kind of plays in this space. So anyway, that's all I got for you today. 5 records. All of her will be are on black, so I really didn't bother to pull anything out for you. This is a gatefold. It's all good. So maybe next time I see you, I'll have all this stuff in, or I haven't done a tape update. Maybe I'll do some tapes. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, YouTube. Until then, take care. Thanks for watching. Bye.